So, you just downloaded Star Trek Online and are about to make your first character, and you're probably looking at the screen going, oh my god, there are so many options, what do I pick? Let me help you out there. Star Trek Online is divided into two factions, which may already sound confusing because, as you can see here, there are 6 different choices. The reason for this is that the two main factions for Star Trek Online are the Starfleet faction and the Klingon Defense Force faction. The rest of these are either minor factions or sort of like half factions. This first version of Starfleet is the one that is contemporary to Star Trek Online's timeline. This is the version that most of the game's storyline will revolve around, and just kind of the default version of Starfleet, whereas these other two are sort of variations on the original Starfleet. They will take place originally in different time periods. Obviously, the Discovery Starfleet will take place in Star Trek Discovery, mainly in season 1 of Star Trek Discovery during the Klingon War that was happening in that time period. So you'll start around the 2256, and then with the TOS Starfleet, you will start in 2270, so like just after the original series. All 3 versions of the Starfleet faction do have their own starting experience, meaning they will have their own unique tutorials, and the first 5 or so missions, at least for the 2 variations, those will have unique story arcs to those factions, but eventually they will be brought forward into the future to 2409 and be made a part of the standard Starfleet faction as a whole. There will be some unique animations from characters made between each of the 3 variants of Starfleet. So, like the contemporary ones, they'll for the communicator, they'll hit a comm badge. They'll use a late 24th century, early 25th century style tricorder. They'll have a TNG style warp out effect, stuff like that. Whereas Discovery will get a Discovery style warp out. They'll use the old flip style communicator, which is from season 1 of Discovery, and they'll have their own unique beam out animation, as will the TOS Starfleet. They'll have the TOS style beam out. They will have the old style flip communicators from the original series, and they will have their warp out animation is a lot like the one that you see in on the contemporary Starfleet, just with some less flash to it. It's a bit more fitting to the original series, basically. But beyond those things, there really is no difference between the contemporary Starfleet and the other 2 versions of Starfleet, because, like I said, the other 2 will eventually be absorbed into the main version of the faction. Now, there is also the KDF, the Klingon Defense Force. Now, they don't have any sort of variation on them. The only KDF version is the KDF. However, you can make various different kinds of KDF, because once you get into the character customization, you can make original series style Klingons, and you can make Discovery style Klingons. It's just they will still be a part of, story-wise, they will still be a part of the contemporary timeline for Star Trek Online. So the differences will be more what we call Space Barbie focused in Star Trek Online, meaning the differences are purely cosmetic. Now, things get a little weird once we get into the Romulan Republic and the Dominion, because these 2 are what I like to call half factions. Basically, they have their own unique starting experience. They go through their own tutorial, and they go through their own series of missions that are their starting arc that are unique to that faction. However, eventually they will be given the choice to ally with one of the 2 main factions. So if you make a Romulan or a Dominion character, eventually you will be forced to ally with either the Starfleet or the Klingon Defense Force, and you will effectively become part of that faction. With Dominion characters, it's even more simplified, because Dominion characters are set up even more differently because they are designed to start at level 60, whereas all the other factions, they are designed to start, from the beginning. Dominion characters are designed to be played by characters who are already very familiar with Star Trek Online, who kind of get how it is, so their tutorial is much more simplified. They just go through some basic stuff, which is really more meant to kind of set the stage for the story more than anything else, from the Jem'Hadar perspective, rather than actually teach you the basics of the game, because since you're starting at level 60, you're already kind of expected to know the basics of the game. So you go through that, and then at the end of the tutorial for the Jem'Hadar, you will then choose a faction between Starfleet choose a faction to ally with, which will be Starfleet or the KDF. For first-time players, I would probably recommend the Starfleet faction just to get you into the gist of the game. It's going to be the best introduction to the overall universe as a whole, because one thing that's kind of important to remember for Star Trek Online, especially if you've never played it before or if you've never heard about it before, it's really important to keep in mind that a lot of Star Trek Online's story was written before Star Trek Picard even existed, so at this point there are quite a lot of contradictions with existing canon, particularly those that were made with Star Trek Picard. Once you kind of have an idea of what you're doing, then feel free to go through any of the other factions. You know, KDF is also really interesting. That also has its it's a very Klingon unique start, and much of the game is much more from a Klingon focus. Once you get to a certain point in the story, it's going to be very much more universally told. You know, you will eventually become part of a big alliance between all of the factions, so it's going to be less focused around the individual factions and more focused around just, you know, the Alpha and Beta quadrants and even the other two quadrants, so really just the galaxy as a whole at that point. One other thing worth pointing out, while most of the starting experiences in these factions are really up to date, the only one that's kind of been left behind is the Romulan Republic. This one has not been updated much at all since it was first introduced into the game, which was back in like 2012. So a lot of the episodes and the tutorial for the starting experience for the Romulans are quite aged at this point, especially in comparison to the other factions, which honestly is a real shame because, in my opinion, the starting experience for the Romulans is some of Star Trek Online's best writing. So if you can overlook some of the lack of polish on that, I would definitely give the Romulans a check, because it's such good writing in there. Just, Romulans are cool, man. They're always so underappreciated, and that starting experience really gives them a nice highlight. That is just, it's so very much deserved, and I really wish Star Trek Online had the time and the resources to go back through and give this the love that it deserved. Now, if you're more interested in what faction is going to be the best stats-wise, you know, what's going to give you the best options for outfitting your character for min-maxing the most, that is also going to be Romulan, because there are certain bridge officers, which I'm not going to get into too much detail on what bridge officers are, but what they do is you can outfit them on your ship. They will occupy certain stations and give your ship certain powers. And Romulans have the easiest access to certain bridge officers that have a trait called Superior Romulan Operative, and this is one of the most powerful bridge officer traits in the game, and while they are available on each faction, Romulans have the easiest access to them. So if you're more interested in min-maxing your character, then you're probably going to want to pick Romulan Republic. However, if you are here more for just, you know, Star Trek narrative or Star Trek role-playing perspective, then just pick whatever faction you like. However, I would definitely recommend Starfleet as like the beginning faction, just to like dip your toes into Star Trek and then work your way from there. The next thing you're going to do is pick your character's species. Now, this is a whole other thing because, well, especially on the Federation side, there are a lot of different playable species. In fact, I probably have a few more that you don't have access to, because several of these are unlocked through various in-game purchases, like the Cardassians. They are an in-store purchase, so are the Joined Trill. And the Liberated Borg and the Talaxians, they are only available to those who have a lifetime subscription to the game. Now, on the surface, it may not look like there is much difference between these various different races, but what, for some reason, the game doesn't actually do a very good job of telling you is that there are differences between these different races, because each different playable species has a unique innate personal trait that has some sort of different stat buff or sometimes stat debuff, depending on what the trait is and what the species is. While Star Trek Online does a very poor job of explaining these, fortunately, the Star Trek Online wiki does have these. So what you're going to do is go to stowiki.net. That is the up-to-date Star Trek Online wiki. Don't go to the one on Fandom, because that one has been abandoned, because Fandom is kind of a nightmare to deal with. Go to stowiki.net, and then we will go over here to Faction, and then that will give us the option to pick between the different factions. We'll go with the Starfleet one, because that's the one we were looking at. And then we scroll down here to the playable races. Now here, let me zoom in a little bit to let you read this better. This is where we see the various innate traits that these various different species get. So like Andorians here, they get a buff to perception, exploit damage, some extra resistance against flanking damage, and bonus damage for each point of missing health that increases as your health nears 0. Each species has a different trait, and it's important to remember that this innate trait cannot be changed, which is why it's kind of important on which alien that you pick. I say it's important. It's not that important. Any of these can get through any kind of content in the game with little difficulty. You know, it's really going to be dependent on the actual build on your character and your ship. That's going to determine on how you get through various content in the game. So your actual species isn't going to matter all that much. Again, unless you're trying to min-max. So if you're wanting to like get the most out of your character, ignore the rest of these. What you want is an alien character, because since alien characters can be literally anything, they're designed to be a custom alien species. You can make your own original alien, you can recreate one of the existing aliens in Star Trek to a certain extent. Not all the pieces are there for every single species, but most of them are there. Or you can make some sort of hybrid character between, you know, you can make like a half Vulcan, half Klingon or something like that. You know, just, you know, anything you can come up with that, you know, a lot of the parts are there that you can use that with. So because they are meant to be a custom alien, they didn't give them an innate trait, and instead their innate trait is just a 10th blank personal trait slot for both ground and space. With the power creep the way that's been over the years, odds are you're going to be able to find a personal trait that is far better than any of the personal traits that are innate traits on all of these characters, especially because most of the innate traits on a lot of these species, they're ground traits, which isn't going to help you at all in space combat. And really, in Star Trek Online, you're going to be spending most of your time in space combat, especially once you get to endgame level content. Most of it is more space focused than ground focused. It's like a 70-30 split with most of your time in space. So again, if you're interested in min-maxing, you're going to want something that's going to give you a more of an advantage in space, and aliens are the way to do that because they get a blank trait slot for both space and ground, whereas most of these species only get an innate trait for ground, meaning they won't have any extra bonus for space. Now, just to reiterate, like I said, this is really just for the sake of min-maxing. Again, feel free to pick whatever you want. You know, there are a lot of options there. There is no reason to not pick one of those. The only reason to really pick an alien character is if you want the freedom to just make whatever you want, or if you are wanting to min-max the crap out of your character. But if you are wanting to, you know, go in for more of a roleplay perspective and, you know, play a specific kind of character, you know, like you have a human character in mind or a Betazoid or a Vulcan or whatever, then go with that. You know, there's no reason not to. Now, you saw that the contemporary Starfleet faction does have quite a lot of alien species. Now, they are definitely going to have the most. Like, if you look at the KDF, they have much fewer options there. You still can get Cardassians if you buy them. There are Pharasans, which are basically just like they're like the evil versions of the Caitians. But then, as for the free ones, you get the Gorns, Klingons, or Discovery Klingons. They're basically, Discovery Klingons are different enough from the standard TNG Klingons that they had to make them into two different selections. Like, if you go into the game, you'll see a drop down where you'll be able to pick between the two. If you want to make a TOS Klingon, just pick a TNG Klingon, and then in the character creator, you will be able to make enough changes that they will be able to look like an old school original series Klingon. But yeah, the Klingon, and then Lethian, Liberated Borg Klingon if you have the lifetime sub, Nausicaan, Orion, Talaxian if you have the lifetime sub. They get the Trill if you bought them, and then you get an alien. So as you can see right there, it is 14 to 6 in terms of playable races, and it gets even lower with the other factions. The Romulans only getting access to Romulans, Remans, and aliens. TOS Starfleet only get humans, Vulcans, Andorians, and Tellarites, which means TOS Starfleet don't even get access to aliens, which is why it's the one downside to the TOS Starfleet is that they don't get alien characters, which I've always said was really stupid, and I really wish they'd get access to aliens, because why wouldn't they not have access to aliens, especially when the Discovery Starfleet does have access to aliens? It's really stupid. But yeah, Discovery Starfleet gets access to humans, Vulcans, and aliens. We're still waiting on Discovery-style Andorians. We know the models are in the game, but they haven't made them into playable characters. And yeah, we're still waiting on that one. And then Dominion. Dominion are a little confusing because they just get Jem'Hadar. But there are two different kinds of Jem'Hadar. Let me explain. Because there's the free version of Jem'Hadar, which gets quite a few different ground abilities, which offer various buffs. But if you go with what are called the Jem'Hadar Vanguard, they get those same ground buffs, but also some extra space buffs as well. In fact, if you're not going to make an alien character, Jem'Hadar Vanguard are your second best bet, because they have all the stat buffs that you really want for a space combat build, because they get the extra bonus damage to your weapons, they get extra crit severity and extra crit chance. This is exactly the kind of stuff that you want for a space combat build. So Jem'Hadar Vanguards are definitely your best bet if you're not going to make an alien character. But of course, with Jem'Hadar, they're meant to be the faction of, I already know what I'm doing, because they start at level 60. So yeah, just start with an alien. And of course, there's the fact that you have to pay in order to get the Jem'Hadar Vanguard, because you can get them individually for 600 Zen. They're also available in a couple different bundles. The one is the Gamma Vanguard starter pack, which comes with like playable Vanguards, as well as the Jem'Hadar Vanguard Dreadnought, I think it is. And then there's the full expansion pack, which is much more expensive, but it comes with playable Vanguards in a bunch of different ships, also with playable Cardassians as well. But yeah, again, that gets into a bunch of in-game purchases that if you're new to Star Trek Online, you're probably not ready to make, so I would just recommend picking one of the factions that offers aliens and then going from there. Or just go with whichever one that you already have your heart dead set on, because, like I said, with alien characters, the best reason to make them is for min-maxing your character, but at the same time, not everyone is into Star Trek Online for an MMO experience. A lot of people are here just for a Star Trek experience. They are here to make their own original characters, and just make them however they like. A lot of people want to recreate the stuff that they saw in the show, rather than just whatever is the most optimal for whatever the game's mechanics might dictate. So, play your character how you like, basically. So don't let what I'm saying influence you too much in how you choose your character. Ultimately, how you want to pick your character is the one that you think you're going to have the most fun in. So once you've decided on your faction and your species, then you will have a choice of your career. Now, the thing with careers is that I imagine when Star Trek Online was first being developed, the thinking behind the three different ones is that engineers were going to be like the tanking characters, science characters were going to be like the healer support guys, and then tactical were going to be your DPS characters. And it never really worked out that way, especially in the even in the early days where things were more restricted in how you can build your characters. Even then, tactical really dominated everything, because a lot of the game's problems could be solved with DPS. So the response to that is that Star Trek Online really loosened up what you could do with your characters. So really, you can set up any of these careers any way you want. Like, if you look at other videos on my channel, you see a lot of the time I am set up on an engineering character, but most of my builds are more DPS focused. But I also have tank builds on that character. I even have some more science focused builds on that character. So you really can set up any career any way you want. I do have a video already made that goes over in more detail the differences between each of the three careers. So if you're really interested in knowing the exact differences between the three, I would recommend checking that out. It should have popped up in the right-hand corner, and if it didn't, I'll link it in the description below. Just one heads up, if you do pick an engineer, and I say this as someone who mains an engineer, if you do pick an engineering character, a lot of the DPS community is going to give you crap about it. So overall, tactical is widely regarded as the best of the career choices, because it does have a few abilities on it that can't be changed, that give it a bit more of an edge for DPS potential. But ultimately, you can outfit any three of these careers any way you want, so they can still get through any endgame level content just as easily. So just pick what you like. Oh, actually, before moving on, I should also point out, while space combat, you do have a lot of freedom in how you set up their characters. For ground combat, it's going to be a little bit more restrictive because kit modules, which are they are gear that give you certain abilities on ground. Several of those are going to be more faction specific than you would see on like stuff in space. So keep that in mind as well. Your ground experience is going to be a little bit more different depending on which career you choose than it would be in space. Once you have all that decided, then you're just going to pick up into the character appearance menu, which just lets you customize the appearance of your character, and you have a lot of options. We start here with the basic menu. It looks pretty standard, but then go into the advanced menu, and ooh, that's a lot of sliders. So you're going to be able to adjust a lot of different things on your character, going from, you know, various things, various sliders on your head, like here we go, we got neck length, here we go. Neck bulk, make a thick neck, very thin neck. Here we go. Then we go more slide. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can play around with here. You will probably spend hours tweaking your character into how you like it, and yeah, this is one of the big joys with Star Trek Online, is that just how robust the character customization is, just visually, is just absolutely insane. Like, you don't see this in a lot of games anymore, especially, you know, MMOs like this. So this is kind of crazy even today, you know, especially considering this is a 14-year-old MMO. Give him super long legs, we'll give him super buff legs, then giant honking feet. There we go. Okay, yeah, that's just the body slider stuff. I mean, there's also all the head customization stuff, and then you get onto the uniform stuff, which there are already several different uniforms that you can choose from, both from the shows and original to the game itself, which, I mean, this is nowhere near all of them. Like, a lot of them are going to be restricted to in-game purchases and stuff like that, but even then, there are still going to be a lot of them. Like, look at this. That's just... You got a good amount of options. You won't have access to a lot of these initially, but you'll still have a good amount of variation to pick from. And even then, even of the ones that you got various options to customize them, like color options, and various comm badges. You'll be able to put rank pins on them. There's a lot you can do here. Now, don't worry, you are not stuck with the appearance that you pick here. There are tailors set up in various locations in the game, mainly in the home base locations, so like Earth Space Dock, Kronos, New Romulus, Deep Space Nine, a handful of other locations too, but those are like the main ones. But you'll be able to go to those tailors and adjust the appearance of your character again if you choose to, and not just with the uniform. You will be able to change the entire appearance of your character whenever you like. Okay, so once you get that done, then it's just picking the name for your character. Now, your character name and your formal name are going to be a little different because your captain name is going to be just the name that shows up over your character's head that other players are going to see. That's the one that will be seen in the in-game chat. That's just, you know, how people will know your character. But the first, middle, last name, those are going to be the names that you mainly see in both your like character bio and in various dialogue for episodes. So mainly the text dialogue, because there won't be, you know, they're not going to be able to do voiceover for your own original name. That would be impossible. Now, you won't be able to change your name whenever you want. There is a token that you can buy to change your character's name, but which you can buy that whenever you want, but it will cost you Zen. But the formal name, that you can change whenever you want. That's just part of your character's bio. You'll be able to go into your character page, change bio, and change that whenever you like. And then ship name, this will just be for your starter ship. Trust me, you will be obtaining several ships throughout Star Trek Online, so pick a name. You will be able to change that whenever you want, and then you will be able to change ships whenever you want. As you start leveling up, you will have plenty more ships as you go on, so don't get too hung up on a name, because you can change it whenever you like. So with Star Trek Online, overall, from a min-maxing perspective, if you are interested in doing the most amount of damage possible, with doing the most amount of stuff you can be able to do, if you really want to see those DPS numbers get as high as possible, the one you want to pick is you want to go with a Romulan character, then you want to make him into an alien, and then you want to pick Tactical. That is going to be the min-maxing option to get the best of what you wanted to do if you want to get into like the DPS chase or something like that. Romulan, Alien, Tactical is the best option. Doesn't matter which one you ally with. It doesn't matter if you ally with the Federation or with the Klingons. Doesn't really make that much of a difference. Federation might make things a little bit easier because in the player base there's a lot more people playing Federation than there is playing Klingon. So, like, in terms of like stuff you can buy on the exchange that is faction exclusive, you're probably going to have more options, or there's probably going to be better availability on the Federation side than the KDF side, but that's not going to be true for everything, so it's going to be kind of a case-by-case scenario there. But overall, I would probably pick Federation over Klingon. But like I said, that is just from a min-maxing perspective. Feel free to pick whatever you like. Do not get too hung up on trying to be the very best character that you can possibly make, because there's so much variation in Star Trek Online. There's so much freedom in how you can set up a character. There's so much you can do with your character. Don't be afraid to just pick something because you like it, because frankly, that's what a lot of people do, and you can get through just fine as long as you know what you're doing. That's really what it comes down to. Your build on your actual character and your ship is going to be far more important than a lot of the stuff that you're going to be picking in this startup screen. That's what it really comes down to. You're not going to need to worry about like the hard decisions on picking stuff until later. So just pick the character that you want to make. Make the character that you've got thought up in your head that you want to play as. Don't worry about trying to be the very best right away, because you're probably new at Star Trek Online. You have no idea what you're doing, and that's fine. A lot of people who've been playing this game for years still have no idea what they're doing. It hasn't stopped anyone. So just make a character that you like and go have fun with it. So yeah, that is my character creation guide for Star Trek Online. I know it seems like kind of a long-winded way of saying just pick what you like, because it's not really going to matter all that much. But you know what? Context is important, I think. And there are a lot of different characters. There are a lot of different species. There are a lot of different ways to pick your character, even at this early stage of the game. So it's always good to go in with an informed decision, but at the same time, just pick what you like and then have fun with it. Don't let anyone else tell you what you should be playing. Just pick what you like. If you're looking for more videos on Star Trek Online, I have a lot of them. A lot of my content is more focused on the game's endgame content, however, but I do still have some videos that will help you out as you're leveling up, and even more as you get to the endgame level of the game. Though I am working on getting more early guides like this done too. Like, I've played this game for a very long time, so it's sometimes a struggle to get back into the mindset of being a new player, because I haven't been a new player in over 14 years, so it's a mindset I have to get back into. If you found this guide helpful, be sure to let me know by hitting that like button, and if you have any ideas for other early level Star Trek Online guides that you'd like to see me do, let me know in the comments. If you would like to further support the channel, you can hit that join button down below to become a member of the channel. You can also find the link to the merch store down there. If you're ever shopping on the Epic Games Store, like for video games, or if you're playing Star Trek Online through the Epic Games Store, you can buy Zen through there. Be sure to use my creator code STU1701. It helps me out a little bit, and I do appreciate that. If you're like me and you love collecting little model ships, you know, like this, be sure to check out Real Merch. They have a bunch of models from Eaglemoss's Star Trek collection, as well as other Eaglemoss collections. So if you're ever going over there, be sure to use my discount code, which is also Stu1701. You'll get a 10% discount from them, and with both of those codes, I do benefit a little bit financially, and I do appreciate that, because, you know, all this, it costs money, and you know what, so does food and basic things to keep me alive. So again, I really do appreciate it if you use those codes. But either way though, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.